shall be having this morning. On Monday, in Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, an extensive report was carried by investigations editor for KTN, Francis Ontomwa, about the dark walls of surrogacy in Kenya. It was then in the afternoon on KTN, and of course, voiced by Lennox Sengre, and we looked into some of those details on the news side, and thought best to look into this conversation this morning because I hazard that perhaps some of the shockers in that story, Ontomwa did not put all of them in that story, but he's here and he'll tell us some of those things today. So, Francis, good morning.
Good morning, Do.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. You?
I'm fine, thank you. It has.
Yeah.
It has. You know, normally sometimes on the other side, looking under the microscope for the guys, or the magnifying glass. So it's good to have you in the room this morning.
It's good to see you.
So we open up these things today.
Yeah.
Also joining us this morning is Dr. Muthoni Thiankolu, who's an advocate, and he also joins us in the room this morning. Good morning, Wakili.
Good morning, dude.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you for also being here, because you can tell us what the law, because you can also let us know what exactly this means in this world that we are looking into, and in terms of how it's then going to then be able to work for us. We are also joined this morning to have a conversation with Mutuku Nguli, who is part of the Counter Human Trafficking Trust of East Africa, and also joins us in the room this morning. Good morning, Nguli.
Good morning. Thank you.
Karibu sana, everybody. Before we get to work, let's put you to a little bit of work. Dennis goes to a different African country every week. This week, he'll tell you where we are. We'd love to hear your interpretation of this proverb.
And the proverb comes from Angola, 7th largest country in the continent, rich in diamond, gold, and oil. Got its independence from the Portuguese, so it's a Portuguese-speaking country. And one of the things that still is a problem in the country, aside from the economy, like any other country, is the fact that during the Civil War, there was a lot of landmines in the country, and up to date, people continue to suffer because you don't know where you step and whether you'll find landmine there. So it is said it is a country with, among countries with many landmines that still are active today. But the proverb we get from Angolans: walk with a thief and you will steal. Walk with a liar and you lie. Wakili, you're always in business of interpretation. How would you interpret that?
It's simply what we were told in primary school: birds of a feather flock together, such that if you keep bad company, you're likely to be influenced to become a man or woman of bad character. And equally, if you keep the company of people of noble character, there is a great chance that you yourself are likely to pick good influences from such people.
Yes. I love that you picked good influences. Yes. Mutuku, how would you interpret it?
Oh, actually, basically what that would mean in our own context, especially in Africa, is that your friends define you. As they say, show me your friends and I'll know your character before you even tell me. So that is the simplest interpretation I would give that analogy. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's been said it all, that you are the company that you keep. So if you decide to work with rogue people, if you decide to work with people who are well-minded, you are likely to be that. So I think that's the bottom line. Yes.
Well said.
Indeed. Thank you, gentlemen, for this. Of course, we're looking into this dark alleys of surrogacy in Kenya. And when we think about surrogacy, it's actually a process which is meant to give hope to those who want to have children, but because of physiological or other issues are not able to do that. Whether there is a risk to them as a woman, if you carry a pregnancy, if there's a risk and you're not able to do that, but you do want to have children. Surrogacy is a process that had been introduced many, many, many years ago, whereby another woman essentially nests the pregnancy for you, and then hands over that child to you. It has since become a business whereby, we've got a number of women who can give birth quite a number of times and who do this in exchange for money. And so, just with that bit of an introduction, Ontomo, as you did this story, what made you think that this was something that you would investigate a little bit more?
Thank you, Ru. And I think I like the preamble that you are setting up already, that we are not entirely saying that surrogacy is a bad thing. And I don't think that is what really the intention of our story was.
Yeah.
So we were out there to document really the ills that are associated and that are less spoken about in this dark industry. So we interviewed a number of people, and we we looked at a number of research that have been done already. And it jumped out like a very important subject that we needed to have. And therefore, we set out, we talked to so many people, and we may have actually documented fewer voices than we interviewed. So we have lots more others that we kept on the side, because we're intending to follow up that story in a bigger way. So, but by and large, it was really important. And I think it's a conversation that this country must really have. Because it's a dark industry that is operating in a vacuum that we need really to address.
Okay, now even as we, well, of course, are coming back and forth, but to you, Bonanguli, obviously dealing with issues of trafficking, and this story led to suggestions of possible trafficking by external parties for women in Kenya who are surrogates, but these children are then taken and moved off to different parts of the world. Is that the reality?
Well, thank you. That's just one part of the reality, because we have both local and the cross-border, that's international aspect of surrogacy that plays out in society. And mainly all this is determined by the demand and, where the location of that demand comes from. So we have seen by and large that big numbers from outside seek to process surrogacy through Kenya, maybe because we have weaker legislation which does not provide safeguards for victims. And therefore, for us, it's actually the exploitation bit that really gets us concerned. And then when we look back at it, trying to trace the continuum of the process, we realize, in actual sense, it all fits into human trafficking. But then the end product of how exploitation happens is actually two ways. The mother is exploited for non-payment for the promise they given, but also the children are being trafficked, not for the purpose of humanity, but for the purpose of organ harvesting. So these
of whom? The child?
The child. Actually, that is the end product. Someone would ask the question, why would someone from outside, very far land, come and seek for an African child to be moved out? How many of us would know the context of Africans in relation to other races especially? It's only defined by the fact that the motive is never to procreate humanity, but rather to exploit and benefit from the process, because it's a very competitive industry where organs are not readily available.
So, Wakili, with all that both Ontomo and Nguli have talked about,
Yes.
there is then the aspect of the law. And we know we have the ART bill in the country that is said to be regulating this area, this demography. But if you read the laws, or if you compare the laws that we have in the country and other developed democracies, what are the gaps that people are taking advantage of to commit crime?
Great question. And to me, there are two questions. I want to begin by saying there is nothing inherently wrong or immoral or even exploitative about surrogacy in and of itself. Surrogacy has been with humanity since the advent of civilization. Even in your biblical times, when you see Abraham and Sarah asking Agar to bear a child for them, it is a form of surrogacy. Of course, with the knowledge available to the world at that time, a very rudimentary form of surrogacy. Even in our pre-colonial Africa, and even today, there are many arrangements couples enter when they are unable to have a child with another woman, that, technically speaking, they have all the hallmarks of surrogacy. So the problem we have in Kenya is that as societies have advanced, and these days surrogacy is now heavily intertwined with the human reproduction technology, IVF and whatnot, is that our government has not enacted a legal framework to govern that space. And it's not just surrogacy. There are many other things, although today we are focusing on surrogacy. And as usually happens, Wakili can tell you in law school, we were taught that man, in this case including woman, is inherently self-seeking, and the purpose of law is to regulate human activities. So when you have a space of human activity that is not regulated by way of law, that's why you create room for exploitation, for predation, for bad behavior. So the real issue really is not that there is something wrong or dark about surrogacy. It is a problem that has been with us, and the absence of a law then creates too many problems. One of them is, of course, who are the legal parents of a child that is conceived through such arrangements, who bears parental responsibility for that child, and many other legal questions.
Sure. And of course the question comes in terms of then what can a woman do with her body? If she decides that she wants to get pregnant and hand the baby over to somebody else for some money, it's her body, right? But then the regulation of the law then comes into that. It's interesting because one of our members of parliament for Super North, Milio Dambo, has been on this surrogacy issue for a while in terms of regulation, in terms of what it needs to look like. Now let's park that for just a little bit. I want to come back to you on Tuama because these women are getting pregnant, and from the details of your story, we're looking at anything between from 35,000 shillings a month for the duration of the pregnancy is the kind of money that they get. The hospital bills are taken care of. The minute they deliver the baby, then that transaction ceases. Is that correct? If that's the case, who is this person who's paying this money? How do they get in touch with somebody? Are they already pregnant women that they then approach? Or do they say, get pregnant for... how is this happening?
So how it works is this thing starts from informal conversations.
Okay.
Mostly it's referrals. And social media is really a big space for this thing. So these agencies advertise for women who are willing to be part of this trade. And according to what we are learning, they get overwhelming responses from women because of the tough economic times. And it's interesting looking at the demographics that we are especially focusing on. It's mostly women from the informal settlements, poor women who are unemployed, women who have just tough economic times. So once they are recruited, they are then linked with clients. They are clients who talk to these agencies all over the world. And once they procure these clients, they start looking for now the surrogate mothers. So they link these surrogate mothers, and then there is the transfer of the embryo to these mothers. So it's mostly through referrals, and it's mostly through social media that they reach out to these women.
Okay. So who's funding it though? These are agencies that have set up for business, or is there somebody behind all of this who's pumping in money because it's an expensive process? Who's footing the bill?
Mostly it's the agencies are just conduits. We have ready clients who are out there looking out for who wants to have children. Some of them are couples. Some of them are just people out there who just want to have children and who cannot bear children. So they reach out. And these agencies are just in between, as the conduit between now the client and the surrogate mothers.
Okay.
So, Wakili, I'll ask the question and I will come back to you in terms of trafficking. Wakili, does the law today as we have it allow foreigners to come into the country and procure surrogacy? Because as I was reading, I saw it has been discouraged to avoid what you call tourism or foreign. It is basically illegal in the country. But even with that, do we see foreigners come in the country to procure surrogacy? And if that's the case, do we have a problem with implementation? And does that then qualify for organ transplant and trafficking, which is illegal in the law?
Kenyan, we now live in a neoliberal world in which there is free movement of people, services, and whatnot. So there is no law barring any foreigner or even a local citizen, because again, it would be unfortunate to reduce this or to profile foreigners. The truth is that even local citizens enter into these arrangements, but the technical answer to your question is that, as I said, there is no legal framework governing surrogacy and other forms of assisted human reproduction in Kenya. And as a result, there is a legal vacuum. If you want, you can call it a legal penumbra. And as I said earlier on, then the problem is not that the commissioning parent or the commissioning couple. When I talk of the commissioning parent or couple, these are the people who want a baby, and they are now engaging the woman who is able to carry a pregnancy. So that woman is the one we call the surrogate mother, the one bearing the child on behalf of someone else. And then the contracting or commissioning couple or whatever. So there is no law. The point is, unless something is expressly prohibited in a positive law enacted by parliament or a rule of common law, then it's free for all. Anything goes. And that's precisely the problem. And I want to say this problem has not been recent in Kenya. It's only that it has caught media attention in recent times. If you go to Europe, for instance, the UK, the country from which we borrow most of our laws, enacted the law on this in the year 1990. I don't know if that's close now to 40 years ago. So for me, the issue is anyone can come, and I don't know how much your time permits. We don't want to go into the intricacies of the science, but there are two forms of surrogacy. One is in which the mother has no genetic link. That is, the woman now paid to enter into surrogacy, has no genetic connection to the baby she's carrying. So they will harvest the ovum from the intended mother, the sperm from the intended father, have them fused in a lab or in a hospital or clinic setting. Then it will be put into the surrogate mother's womb. So that is complete surrogacy. There is, of course, the more traditional one that I said goes back even to the biblical times, where the woman who is paid or commissioned has a genetic link to the baby in question, in the sense that it is her egg that is used to generate the baby. The legal questions, as I said, are very many. For instance, we all know pregnancy is an inherently risky journey. A pregnancy can come with lifelong complications. It comes with serious health risks. It comes with even long-term, even risk of death. So when someone is entering into a transaction that can run into 9 months with an infinite range of potential health complications, on the one extreme being death, the other extreme being lifelong impact, then you're told you've been paid that 5,000 shillings, or God forbid, even much less a month. You have been promised you'll be paid a certain lump sum if the baby is born and is okay. Then let's say, by way of example, you're told you'll be paid 1 million shillings, the typical woman in Kenya living in the informal settlements. That would be a windfall in that economic space. But it's actually very little money, given the type of complications that can arise in the whole journey of pregnancy and childbirth. So that's why now the questions of exploitation and who is getting the money, like when I saw your stories and like happens in all these spaces without regulation, why would an agency be paid millions of shillings? The person carrying all these risks, for instance, just gets that 5,000 shillings a month, and at the end of the journey. And trust me, just yesterday I was reading a very interesting case of an infinite range of complications that arise legally, even from the surrogate themselves, because it will be unfair again to treat these women who are being commissioned as always the victims, sometimes they themselves shortchange the couple that has commissioned them. So we should also be sufficiently open-minded to know there are legal problems that can arise because perhaps this woman we are seeking to protect is herself not a very good person and does not honor deals. Only time doesn't permit, like I told you. Just yesterday I was reading a very interesting case.
Yeah. Guli, what you said is a bit worrisome to me, just making the connection between that and on Thomas' discoveries, that there, can we see a direct link between these women who are being delivered of their babies and a trafficking dragnet in other parts of the country, specifically towards organ harvesting of children? Can we see that? Because it sounds crazy, but it sounds like it's a lab. It sounds like a lab. That these children are being delivered, they're taken, these children grow up wherever they are kept, for whatever, so that their organ... I don't even want to finish the statement, but is that what we are saying? It's mind-boggling.
Actually, it is. And
that's the case?
You're not alone. It's a very complex way that, surrogacy in its illegal form happens. The motive, the intentions, and how it's all administered in order to get the babies. I think one of the key things that we need to always recall is that for a baby and the mother to be deemed as victims of trafficking, there has to be recruitment, and that's where the investigation was able to identify that mothers are recruited. The number two, they're actually moved from their normal domicile place of living to another location where they are actually harbored. And in the process of harboring, they are actually exploited. So that exploitation happens at some end. That's where the mother process ends. But the baby, once born, when moved for a different location, the purpose starts to take another effect. And this baby becomes now the subject of organs.
This is in Kenya?
This is happening elsewhere. And that's why you could see in one of the segments of the clip, there was the agent trying to say that there's no problem because we process all the documentation and through immigration and things move swiftly. So you could imagine how is all this done in a very secluded manner, and babies are born here, they are moved out of here. Nobody knows where they go, except when we look at the documentation. But what is the motive of these babies being moved? Because I've just said earlier, not that people lack or like black people a lot.
Yeah.
What would be the motivation that they would have people in Africa doing this for them?
I'm almost scared to imagine.
Right?
What could be the thing?
Yeah. So we have to look at this in a bigger, in a global sense, so that we can get the sense of what exactly organizes this crime.
I feel like you're being guarded, Ngulu,
Right.
and you don't want to tell us exactly what's going on with this thing.
So I think what I'm giving you should be able to help you to understand and start learning about this, because all this is information that you can also get and study on. This is not easy crime. This is organized crime. We have a number of people who get involved with the process and who get paid, and it's not small money. That's what I did say. It's quite handsome, except the person who carries the baby.
Tom, sorry, okay. Sorry. These mothers, because you had a conversation with a number of them, right? Because it's 9-10 months, give or take, because the truth of the matter, 36 weeks, then maybe some to 40 weeks. Who takes their children after that? Do they deliver them? Because also we hear with surrogacy that unless you have a family who's actually taking it for the purpose that Wakili has spoken about later, where they actually want a child and they have an agreement whereby you can stay with the baby for a few minutes or whatever before you hand them over. Who is taking these children? How are these mothers feeling? do they understand what has actually happened in that process? Or is it just for the money?
I think largely it's about the money. And one of the most shocking things that we learned is some of these agencies don't allow you to stay with the baby even for days. Once you're done with the business of delivering, the baby is taken away from you. That is some of the confessions that we got from these women. And shockingly, I think one of the things that we also need to discuss is about the contractual arrangements that these women get into. And one of the things we learned is that these women sign contracts that they cannot show a copy of. They have no copies to show the contract. So they simply go sign them. And shockingly, at credible advocates' places, legal firms, and I think Wakil is here, he might want to chime in on that. So they go sign documents at lawyers' places, but they are never allowed to keep copies. So this is why when these misfortunes happen, miscarriages happen on the way, they cannot even find ways to push a case across because they have no contracts to show, they have nothing really to stand on in terms of credible evidence and papers. So I think it's a major letdown, and I'm just hoping that the law we are looking at will be able to address some of these gaps. As they keep saying here in this country, we always envision and we have all the best laws any country could envy of, but the question of implementation is the hot potato.
I mean, on Tomwa, you see, when these women go through the entire process, right? They are within communities and societies. I don't know if they get into deals where they're put in safe houses to go through the processes and whatnot, but where do they go? Because I'm assuming if someone has gone through the 9 months of pregnancy within the society, when you come back, you got to explain, where did the baby go to? You have to give an explanation to the community or the society. That's another thing that women out here have to handle, as well as Wakili. Now, here's a question where we have the legal fraternity now, lawyers who are into this space, who are abating a problem that does exist. What does that say about lawyers that we have in the country in ensuring that Kenyans are protected?
So first off, the woman who really was largely our case study is a mother of 3. And I think the smallest kid is about 4 years. So she had to come out clean to the children and tell them the truth that I'm carrying a baby and you won't see this baby.
Oh, hang on.
Shockingly.
These mothers are in families. They have other children who they're staying with.
Yes. In our case now, this is a single mother who has 3 children. So she explained it clearly because she knew the repercussions that would come with the children getting shocked. She had to explain how she lost her pregnancy to her children in black and white. So normally there are 2 arrangements. You can agree to be in the surrogate houses, then you are housed. But then when you are housed, because you get all these services, food, cleaning and everything, it means your salary is lesser. So while she was getting 35,000 living at her place, women who were being housed at the surrogate houses were getting 20,000 shillings. That is what we learned. So it's largely the emotional attachment of these mothers to the babies is another thing that we discovered, that this mother, it's human and it's motherly to get attached to your baby. And just that letting go that this baby can now be taken in an instant is really pains some of these mothers. You are left lactating and no child to relieve you. So you listen to some of these tales and you really get sad about it.
Wakili, what do you make of these contracts and these law firms?
I don't think a serious lawyer would encourage a client to sign a contract that they're not given a copy of and that is clearly lopsided and whatnot. Like I've been saying, we run the risk of demonizing surrogacy. The problem at hand is not surrogacy per se. I keep insisting the problem is the lack of legal framework, because it is the lack of legal framework that creates the opportunities for all the extreme things we're hearing: human trafficking, organ trafficking, and whatnot. It is important to know surrogacy serves a useful purpose, in society. And speaking for myself, there are enormous positive benefits. A properly regulated surrogacy framework can give the country and all parties involved. There will be work for lawyers, for instance, drawing good contracts within a properly regulated frameworks. There will be a couple or couples anywhere across the country or the world who are able to overcome the problem of childlessness because of surrogacy. There are fertility clinics that could make huge legitimate business in a properly regulated surrogacy environment. So to me, the issue is not that surrogacy is taking place and it is a bad thing. Far from it. There is nothing wrong. Surrogacy, as I said, will always be with humanity, has always been with humanity. The discussion should be, why has our government, for the last 40 to 50 years, when surrogacy became commonplace across the world, why haven't we enacted a law? And now he's asking legal circles, because in this country, you may not know it, most of the laws we enact are just copy and paste from UK laws. Why didn't we even copy and paste whatever they have there instead of having this legal vacuum? In any event, most of our other laws are copy and paste. I could live. There are, of course, structural problems with copy and paste laws because they have been thought out to operate in a different society and whatnot. But to me, it would be much, much better than the situation we have at hand.
Okay.
And if I may confess to you, my very first legal assignments when I joined the legal profession was on human assisted reproduction. Not exactly a form of surrogacy, but if you allow me just 1 minute, it was too interesting. There was a man of Spanish origin and nationality who wanted to propagate his genes, but he was not married. So he was willing to donate his sperm to a woman who would carry his baby. And the donor he found was a Kenyan woman, married to a British woman, and they were living in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The reason I'm just cutting through all these stories to show
I'm sorry. I'm a bit confused. So there's this
Kenyan woman.
a Spanish gentleman
Yes.
decided he was going to sow his royal oats
Yes.
and connected with a Kenyan woman
Yes.
who was married to
To a British man.
British man.
And that
They were
Kenyan woman and her British husband were residing in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Okay.
And they approached my desk as a young lawyer to draft, some sort of contract that specifies the rights and responsibilities of all these people involved in this complex matter. And one of the immediate problems I faced, because, and I'm only mentioning this because I fear we are narrowing the infinite range of complex legal issues that would arise. In that case, assuming there was a dispute, and that's one of the problems we had as a law firm, what law would govern this dispute? Is it Kenyan law, British
Spanish law,
Spanish
British
law,
law,
or the law of the
DR Congo?
Democratic Republic of the Congo? And who bore parental responsibility for this child? Is it the genetic father who is Spanish? Is it the genetic mother who is Kenyan? Does the British husband of this woman, under Kenyan and British laws, the child born to your wife is generally presumed until the contrary is shown to be your child? Will the British husband acquire parental responsibility for this child? Suppose that couple divorced at some point along the way. This child itself, is it of Kenyan nationality? Is it of British, Spanish, Congolese? So there are just too many. If we had the proper law, it would address all these among countless other issues. But the point I'm making is the problem is not surrogacy. The bad guys, because we must acknowledge, from your story, it's clear they are extremely bad guys in this space. They are only thriving because it's in the nature of humanity where there is no regulation.
Yeah.
That is the perfect breeding ground for all bad things to happen.
You need to see the backlash that we got from this story, and
Yes.
it was really massive. And I think it speaks volume on the cartels that are.
I actually understand the backlash.
Yes.
Part of the reason for that backlash, if you're part of the bad guys in that dark space, you're threatening lucrative business.
A lot.
Two, if you're actually one of the good players, because I know good players, including lawyers and doctors, who
They
in that
do
space,
exist.
and you're doing honest day's work, earning your honest pay, then there is this story that suggests that the skies are falling because there is all these evil things happening, and then you're wondering, but I mean, speaking for myself, I'm a fairly credible lawyer, perhaps one of the most credible in this republic. Now, if a suggestion was made without good justification that I'm in some dark space, facilitating exploitation of Kenyan women and whatnot, you're likely to have backlash. And in fact, when I agreed to come to this show, part of the reason I agreed was to attempt to also bring other dynamics that are not the extreme, because it's in human nature, it's easy to run with the extremely bad examples, then do a broad brush painting. The truth is that there are genuine couples who have no interest in organ harvesting, who have no interest in human trafficking. What they actually need is a baby.
Yeah.
And they will engage credible lawyers, credible agencies. But because the space is unregulated, there is also a very high risk, as you found, that they will be the worst that is possibly imaginable at all those levels. And that's the reason we are here.
Okay. Guli, when we look at how these, because obviously would we say that the majority, from what you understand, from these networks, these children are taken outside of Kenya, outside of the country? How are they moved? I remember traveling with my children outside the country, and when I'm alone, that somebody's going to ask me, these children, whose are they? How are you leaving?
They only ask women.
They only ask women. They never ask they only ask the women. How are you leaving? Whose? Do you have Do you have permission to leave
from the father?
Yeah. So I wonder if it's a foreign couple, some random person leaving with a child, a small baby, or even if they've grown. How are they leaving?
I think this story about how babies move out of the country through the surrogacy process was explained a little on the clip, but I would like to say something before that, because I think Francis did allude to how some of the players. We need to know how it is played out. We did a small study in 2019 on surrogacy, and at that time we realized a number of things. One, surrogacy in this country was happening in relation to hospitals, designated hospitals, private hospitals, in relation to recruitment, people who are like assigned to identify and bring on board victims or
recruit.
Yes, bring them on board with the promise of the money, which was never at the end of it all done. At that time, actually, the whole 6 women we interviewed who had been in the process were actually being airlifted from Nairobi to a hospital outside of Nairobi for a very small, very, very sole purpose of running through a cesarean section. And this was a very deliberate case at that point, because it was just defining that at the time of birth, while the mother is in a short coma, they can remove the baby and take away. So there will never be contact, they'll never even hear the baby cry, and they will never know whether they gave birth to a living or a dead fetus. So it was very interesting. In the many years, 7 years down the line, about 6 years down the line, Francis does this study, and he realizes there is still a link to a hospital. I think this is very important. Even though it could be seen in the small face of how they are taken care health-wise and things like that, there is a deeper meaning to this, because it is not a small endeavor and undertaking. They would like to seal any loopholes that could come along the way as they procure the babies. And I think that's important. Now, the other thing that we learned during that study, very simple. The documentation of these babies is normally processed while they are still at the hospital. And therefore, by the time they are being released from hospitals, they have every detail of document needed to move them out.
We're talking passports, all of this.
Exactly. I'm talking about birth certificate, passports, and affiliation, because the babies cannot move themselves. so it's a very organized it's a very organized crime. It's not simple, and it involves a very intense network to make the facilitation of this happen internationally.
Allow me to paint in very straight examples the various pathways through which these children leave the country. Assuming things are done honestly above board and whatnot, the normal route would be the commissioning parents would file an adoption case in their court. They would adopt, because in the absence of a law, that is the route honest people follow to have parental rights over that baby. And therefore, if everything is above board, the normal pathway for these children to exit the country is through adoption proceedings, in which now the commissioning parents become the legal parents, and the child will get papers to move. The second pathway, now in the dark world, is that the woman could simply be invited to a country X as a tourist while she's pregnant, so that the baby is delivered there. So the baby doesn't even step on Kenyan soil. The third pathway is the dark one. They could just be trafficked. You've seen, to use very obvious examples, at TV stations, there was this truck declared as carrying animal fodder, then it was opened, and inside of it were people, aliens from neighboring countries or far-flung countries. That's another pathway through which these children could leave the country. Yes.
I mean, Ontomwa, what you talk about here is a famous word, just a cartel system that is well organized. Because we talk about, we have the drafters of the contracts, right? You have the hospitals where these are procured. You have immigration departments who look the other way and process all these.
It's a whole food chain.
It's a whole chain. Just, if you manage to follow through, how connected, how organized is it? And are we able to say that this is something that is known, is happening in the country? We just choose to look the other way.
Yeah, just to borrow Mutuku's words, this is a business where big money is involved. And when we have big money involved in a system, it means that the chain is well oiled all across. And therefore there is that interconnectedness from every step of the way. Every step of the way there is some money that needs to be parted with so that you move to the next stage. And the connection here is once a woman is brought into the picture and she delivers, there is the processing that needs to happen. And that is what I think has been alluded to here, that there is a lot of processing, the passports, the birth certificates, everything ready. So the chain is so seamless because of the people who've managed to guard this space. And that is why I was also saying that we might have a law, but it will be really tough to implement because of the cartels that have taken hostage of the space. So it's a whole chain that has every player getting their share of the bargain, and therefore it becomes very difficult to penetrate or even to question some of the things that are happening, because you might want to question the identity, the passport and everything, but these things they've already been thought out. It's a chain that is seamless from the beginning to the very end, and breaking that chain now becomes really tough.
Okay. The documentation that Bonangulias talks about is resting in the Department of Immigration, and that's a lawful office.
Very.
right?
Yeah.
And that when you go to get a passport today as a Kenyan, there are many things that you must do in order to have that done. This child, assuming that the surrogate is Kenyan, by birth is Kenyan. That means there's somebody who is at still Huduma, because that's where birth certificates are done, isn't it? Huduma, it's not, it used to be Sharia House. It's now at a Huduma center that you get a birth certificate processed. This person is getting that done. Somebody is saying, okay, go ahead. Somebody's at the Department of Immigration getting a supposed signature and receiving the payment for this process to take place. So that's the web that we talk about here, because there's approvals across the chain for this thing to be done. So there's really nobody that can be absolved of responsibility or even a criminal element when it comes to this whole chain. Is that the case?
You're right. And I think that is, you've pointed it really well. It is so seamless that you cannot find loopholes. You cannot find entry points if you want to question anything, because by the time you want to start questioning, the baby is already out of the country.
Let me ask you, a simple yet complex question. You have become a surrogate mother to a child who has no genetic link with you. Are you really the mother of that child merely because you carried them? That they don't have your genes? They are complete strange. In fact, they are Caucasian or Chinese. That are bred Chinese in everything. Is that still your child?
Okay. So let me ask another question. You know how we often like to do this? If I ask another question,
Yes.
and because this is now a physiological issue,
Yes.
that the process. So is it DNA that makes a child the child of its mother and father only, and not that this woman, you see now, and not that this woman served as a petri dish essentially to carry this child for 40 weeks? Does the fact that a woman has carried a pregnancy make her the mother of that child?
Yeah, what you're asking is the difference between genetic or biological motherhood and legal motherhood.
Yes.
So the answer to the question I asked you, in Kenya, the woman who carried the baby in a womb and gave birth to the baby, by law, is deemed to be the mother. But
The woman who gave birth is the mother.
Yes, but the reason I asked you your question is because while that is the law, law can decree something. From a purely scientific, medical, physiological, whatever you call it, you have actually no link to this child at all. You are just, as you call it, a petri dish or an incubator. You can put chicken eggs into an incubator and they hatch into chicks. Does that mean that machine is now the mother of those chicks?
So, oh my God.
So are we looking at a situation where, assuming this kid never left the country, right?
Yes.
So it is surrogacy, IVF happened, and it was implanted into a mother, carried the baby.
Yes.
The baby is born, like you say, is a Chinese. But he is a Chinese 2 kilometers away, together with the biological parent, scientifically speaking. Oh my God. Is that trafficking?
Trafficking, I described, let me redefine it again. There has to be a process through which we recruit. Recruitment evidence has to be demonstrated. There has to be movement. When you are recruited, you cannot be retained at the place of recruitment. You'll be moved. All right? And if you're not moved, conditions are created so that you can be retained, but not in your normal life. Because here you're under supervision, you're under certain restrictions which you may in ordinary life not have. Then you will need to be placed in a place. And it is where you are placed that we can speak of exploitation. Exploitation, in essence, is just a situation that occurs that does not match the humanity of the expectation of life. So if the purpose of your movement to the different location has resulted into another action which is exploitative, then that feeds the whole chain of human trafficking. And that is the parameter under which both the baby and the mother become victims. Because you can see now, this is a very interesting scenario, because these are two people who've been exploited in different ways. The baby is meant for organ harvesting. And the mother is being underpaid and put under certain coercive conditions which do not observe human situations of life. So these are the situations we talk about when we are talking about the trafficking. There has to be exploitation at the end of the continuum.
But I was expected, the baby was taken away from me.
Yeah.
And it's just...
I mean, we could argue this thing for days.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we see very clearly here is that surrogacy, and that's what we started, in and of itself, it's not a bad thing. It's been helping many couples, many women, many men who are single fathers, for years. But then there's always the criminal element that then wants to essentially bastardize the process. And I mean, you guys are doing some serious work on Tomwa to be able to uncover this that's going on. We also then have come to the realization that poverty in and of itself is a bad thing.
It is.
Because we see the results of
It's
this.
actually central to this issue.
It's central to this issue, and that's why a lot of the women, having been given a choice, would not do this.
Very true.
And would not be in a position to be exploited.
Very true.
The laws need tightening. They need to be even introduced to the level that we're having these conversations. Tough stuff to do, man. And I know they say men don't cry, but I'm sure you must have at some point. Shed a tear, but won't tell anybody. Don't worry. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here this morning to be able to look into this. And we must have these conversations as uncomfortable as they are, because this is the reality of our times, and in terms of what we must do and how we must speak. Mutukunguli is with the Counter Human Trafficking Trust East Africa. Francis Ontomo, our very own here, investigations editor at KTN, and Dr. Mudomi Fiankoli, an advocate, Kolu, I beg your pardon, an advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Appreciate.
We continue this conversation, folks. It is now 9:01. Good morning.
The latest news from around the world. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
An infant is a human being between the ages of 0 to 12 months. So how do you recognize an infant who is choking? Basically, you will look at their face, and when you look at their face, they will be struggling to breathe. They'll try to breathe, and you could clearly see that the baby is unable to breathe. The other thing is they'll try to cough, but the cough is not coming out. You'll clearly see facial distress, and this basically tells you that the infant needs help. So what you need to do is to quickly recognize that that is a true emergency, and you need to quickly help this infant. How do you help this infant? It's very simple, very fast. Pick the baby and support their head, and put the baby on your arm. We usually say your dominant hand, and as you place the baby facing downwards, kindly make sure that you properly support the infant so that they don't fall. Then locate the middle of their shoulder blades, and then with the heel of your hand, give the baby 5 back blows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As you do that, please be checking if the obstruction is coming out. If it is liquid, it will flow out. If it is a solid object, it will come out. But if it doesn't, turn the baby onto the other hand, and then continue checking if the obstruction is coming out. If it doesn't, please locate the center of the chest and give the baby 5 chest thrusts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Please, as you do that, keep on checking the baby's mouth. And if you see the object that is, if it is coming out, you may want to sweep it out with your small finger if it is an object that can be seen. But if it doesn't come out, continue with the 5 back blows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alternate with the 5 chest thrust. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Continue with this technique until the object comes out. If the object doesn't come out, you will do this procedure repeatedly until it comes out. Should the object not come out, it will impair breathing to the infant, and this will result into the baby going into unconsciousness. So if the baby goes into unconsciousness, you will quickly need to resuscitate the baby. So please, we will refer you to infant resuscitation when they are not breathing.
Every now and then, fake news might pull a few strings, but when it comes to reporting the facts, there's only one tune we dance to, our own. For more than 100 years, The Standard has delivered insightful fact-based journalism, and you can't fake that.
Being a leader that you are at Nuper, what are the critical tenets that drive your leadership and informs how you lead this particular agency?
Just going back to the principle of, doing your best where you are. And this applies to everyone. If you are the president, be the best president.
Talk to me about when you're relaxing. What kind of music do you listen to?
A bit of rumba and a lot of Christian music.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
He admitted that he bribed members of parliament?
Well, when he said
The government.
when he said that he gave